That's why our motto at Deep Fence is shift left and secure right.
Excellent.
So our threat mapper, open source product, that's all about shifting left and looking for vulnerabilities in production. But the reality is you can't fix all those vulnerabilities. And there could be issues that even threat mapper doesn't pick up. So that's where our enterprise product kicks in. With the open source product, you find the issues, you can go and fix them as fast as possible. With our enterprise product, you can also secure those applications in real time.
In automation.
Your application is like an open city, and attackers are roaming through. You don't know what they're doing. They're attacking buildings, they're attacking services, they're exfiltrating data. And with our enterprise threat striker product, we then start from the map of vulnerabilities and we watch what happens in your application. We install network sensors, so we see what is coming into your application. EBF-based sensors. So it's like looking at a city, we see the bad guys knocking on doors, trying locks to see if something's open. We install sensors inside the application using kernel interfaces, so no app modifications, so we see things happen in the app. A process crashes, a file system is modified, and we look at outgoing network data, so we see exfiltration attempts. And we put all of this together with a really smart correlation engine so we can understand the growing threat against each of your workloads. Is the workload just being probed by someone running a scanning tool? Or have they found a beachhead? Have they got in? What are they doing now they're in? Are they spreading laterally? And we can piece together all the little signals in our Threat Striker product to figure out what is the story of the attack. And finally, if necessary, you can use us to turn on protection. So if we think the container's been compromised, we can delete it. If we think a pod has been compromised, we can tell Kubernetes to kill it and restart it. If we think that a particular IP is sending a large volume of attack traffic, we can surgically firewall that one source for that container. So you can use us to protect your application very, very quickly against a whole range of attacks.
Love it. Oh, and I know you guys announced some news around here at the show.
Yeah,
it's
been a big week.
Okay.
So our Threat Striker product, it's a sophisticated application. You deploy it on a Kubernetes platform, you deploy sensors in your production platform. We want to make that easier. We want to help people who want to try it out, to evaluate it. We want to help people who need to scale it in production. And so, we've announced a SaaS platform called Deep Fence Cloud. And with a couple of clicks, you can sign in, you can spin up a Threat Striker instance. We will host it for you on our Kubernetes cluster. We'll look after the maintenance and the security and the scaling and the upgrading of that so that you can see the benefits of Threat Striker without having to deal with the task of installing and managing it. Security causes a lot of friction. The best security tools are frictionless, and we're about making it as easy as possible for you to secure your applications.
I love it, my friend. All right, hey, we're about out of time. We're going to take a break. We've got more folks waiting here in the wings.
Yeah, it's been a busy week, hasn't it?
Busier than I thought, in all honesty. I mean, I was surprised the amount of people here. It's good though.
It is great
to be back. Hey,
it's best of luck with
Thank
Deep
you very
Fence.
much. Oh wait, is it deepfence.com?
It's deepfence.io.
.io.
Yep, so find us at deepfence.io. Find us on GitHub, grab Threat Mapper, give us a star if you like it, try it out, reach out to our community Slack, say hi. We'd love to talk to you.
Thank you. Owen Garrett, Deep Fence, deepfence.io. We'll be back here in a moment.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you, man. Hey, we're back here live at KubeCon, Cloud Native Con, Valencia. We are in Hall 1. Traffic is picking up again. I guess sessions might have just ended. It is a lot of buzz, a lot of people out here. We're happy to be here. My guest for this session is Satya Sankaran, and welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Satya is with Cloud Casa by Catalogic?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Satya, if you don't mind, look and tell our audience, tell us about the company, maybe a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Satya. I'm the founder and GM of Cloud Casa. Cloud Casa is a backup as a service player in the Kubernetes ecosystem. We're a cloud native backup service that essentially eliminates the need for a separate backup infrastructure in Kubernetes for Kubernetes users, right? So you simply log into a portal, you can scan your clusters, and we can actually back up your data sets either on-prem or to the cloud. We're also the only cloud-aware backup service. So we don't just understand Kubernetes, we're also the players that can understand your EKS service and the AKS service and leverage that for delivering centralized management compliance, which is a big part of what you do in data protection, and also deliver cyber resilience to make sure that you are protecting your critical data assets, but also configured it correctly, because it's so easy to misconfigure something in the world of Kubernetes, so many moving parts. So we deliver all of that as a service so that without having to maintain a separate backup infrastructure.
Got it, love it. Now, so you're the founder of Cloud and general manager of Cloud Casa. That was acquired by Catalogic, is that the situation?
Yeah, it's a case of a startup within a startup.
Ah, right? Okay, I love those.
I was the chief operating officer of Catalogic, and we were building copy data management products. That was very storage aligned. In fact, our DNA is really building products to partner with large marketplace.
Got it.
So we had an in-place copy data management product that was acquired by IBM in May 2021. That acquisition was foreseen by a lot of us. And that was also around the time we were investing heavily internally on making our backup applications run as microservices, containers, and so on. So we were adopting Kubernetes. When we were adopting Kubernetes, we realized that getting started with Kubernetes is a lot easier than managing Kubernetes down the road.
No doubt.
So there are a lot of data challenges out there. We do backup and restores well. We've done backups and restores for all the way from mainframe to storage integrated NoSQL databases. So we kind of follow wherever the data is, and we see data kind of flowing into the world of Kubernetes. So we built this Cloud Casa product line, should really be called a service line, right? So we built this Cloud Casa as a separate business line because the audience that we sell to is very different.
Yeah.
It is a developer-focused ecosystem community. We were selling to mostly IT folks and storage folks in the other product lines. So to us, it just made sense that one, we were adopting a different service model for delivering our
to a different audience.
Yeah, and to a different audience. So it made sense for us to kind of align our branding with the target we were reaching out to. So that's why it's a separate business line within Catalogic, and it's a great case of actually being in a company that has been there for 20 years and actually building a product and service from ground up. And those opportunities don't come very often, so it was exciting.
So what I find interesting though too is, look, there are a lot of people who say, oh, backup service? Yeah, old hat.
Yeah.
We've been doing backups, on tape, on mainframes forever.
Backup is boring.
Backup is boring. But, well, number one, it's necessary. But number two, even in this world, cloud native world, there are new applications for essentially backup that are now aimed at new audiences, as you mentioned, like developers, like Kubernetes operators and so forth. And it takes what we used to call just boring backup, and now we're talking about things like data management, and which is, not even subtly, it's very different than just saying backup.
Yeah.
Right? But it helps with that data management, and it's a vital piece of this whole process of how we deploy and run our software today. So it really is. I mean, it's backup, but it's not.
Yeah.
Right? It's more. It's backup, but it's more.
Yeah.
So you guys have announced some new stuff here at the show. I think you kind of referenced it a little bit, but why don't we nail that down? What have you guys announced here?
Yeah, so two things. First, just call backup boring. We're happy to be the last line of defense for you. I think there is an important need for that, especially in the world of cyber attacks everywhere. In fact, a lot of our recent announcements have been about establishing cyber resilience rather than just backup. We don't want to be just your last line of defense.
Ransomware and everything else.
We are touching everything that is important to you. And so we deliver cyber resilience. We not only back up your data, we also make sure your data is configured correct. We run configuration scan, we run container scan, we run network scan, we check against your CIS benchmarks. In our service, when you protect your critical assets, we also make sure your critical assets are configured correctly and are not prone to vulnerabilities. So we do that, as well as be your last line of defense, which is certainly something we want to do. So part of data management is cyber resilience, and I think that's what we deliver. And announcements for KubeCon, I think there are 3 themes in our announcements for KubeCon. One is just improving our cloud awareness. It is not enough to just know Kubernetes. Most of Kubernetes is now running in the cloud. Kubernetes is being developed as the operating system for cloud. A lot is about taking advantage of the ephemerence and the elasticity that is provided in the cloud, right? So we already support native integration with AWS EKS, which means we can talk to EKS, we can see all your clusters in one place, across all your accounts and all your regions. And we've expanded that capability to AKS as well. So we can now talk to the Azure Kubernetes service. We can see all your Azure clusters across different data centers and regions, across different accounts in one place. What does it deliver? Centralized management, so you can actually see everything in one place. 2, ephemerence we talked about, which means clusters are coming up and down all the time in the world of Kubernetes. And what you see with us is we can actually sync with your environment, right? Because we can talk to the parent service, we can see when a new AKS cluster comes up. We can see when an old AKS cluster gets moved. And these things happen so often that I think being able to be in sync with your cloud accounts is very important.
Absolutely.
3, we know how your cluster is now actually configured, right? Kubernetes itself has an envelope on top, which is what is used by AKS and EKS. So we know how your AKS clusters are configured. We actually back up that metadata as well. We not only back up what is inside Kubernetes, we also back up how a cluster is configured. And that information is also protected. So when we restore, we can spin up a new cluster automatically in the same service that looks just like what it was when we backed it up. Today, all our other products out there require you to have a functional cluster created first. You have to configure the network, you have to install the agent before the first byte moves from the cloud. Who's got time for that, right? So a lot of what we do is to ensure, because we can now talk to the cloud provider, because we know how your cloud cluster is configured, we can leverage that information and simply bring that up quickly on the other side.
Well, you know, look, if these kinds of things at scale, we can't afford the learning curve. We can't afford to say, hey, go here, let me tell you about my infrastructure, let me tell you about my config. We need things that are almost kind of self-aware, if you will, that go out and do their job, they figure that out and just get it done. You know, my friend Brad Feld used to call that auto magic.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Like, I don't know how it works, but it works.
It just works.
It works. I just want it to work.
Yeah.
This is something that I need done, I need it to work.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then if you can make that happen, you've got a beautiful service.
Yeah,
So-
in our ecosystem is all about, Kubernetes is complex, let's not run away from that, right? So many moving parts.
There's no denying.
Yeah, no denying that. So I think part of what our ecosystem players like us need to do is really make that technology more accessible.
Because that's what's going to make it happen.
Yeah, like you
Because it
mentioned,
is,
I don't
it's
know
not.
how it works, but it just works. And I think
And if
that's
it
the
works,
state we want it to go
that's
to.
what I want.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey man, I want to thank you for joining us. We didn't mention, where do people get more information?
Yeah, just go to cloudcasa.io.
Cloudcasa.io.
Yeah.
CLOUDCASA.io.
Yeah, it's your smart home and cloud.
I love it, man.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hey, we're going to take a break here in Valencia. We'll be back in a moment with more great interviews and information. It's a great event. We'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
That was very good. Alrighty, we're back here live at KubeCon, Cloud Native Con in beautiful Valencia, Spain. Day 2, we're in hall number 1. And you know what, I guess it's getting near lunchtime because I see a lot of people down there by the lunch table. There's a lot of traffic. It's great to see live people, like so many people. I haven't seen so many people in a couple of years now. So
I know, right?
It's very, very good there. I see Liz Rice down by the Isovalent booth. It's a lot of good people around. I have 2 good people with me. Let me introduce you to them. To my far right is my friend Aaron Reinhardt. If you've watched Techstrong TV or followed our coverage, Aaron's no stranger. He's been at our DevSecOps events in RSA, which is 2 weeks from now. He's been a frequent guest. Aaron, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Aaron, of course, is one of the co-founders of Verica, along with Casey, and we have a lot of friends at Verica, right? Oh, it's good to have you. Welcome to KubeCon, welcome to Techstrong TV today, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's great to be here. Like you said, it's actually hard to believe RSA is only 2 weeks away.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks away. Well, it's June. I would have thought RSA was a few months ago.
Well, yeah.
It's better than nothing. I'm glad we're having it. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm glad to be here in Valencia. Glad here to be at KubeCon.
I got to tell you, I'd rather be in Valencia than San Francisco.
Yeah, me
That's
too.
a whole nother story.
Me too. It's
Anyway,
great.
joining Aaron and I had you on Techstrong TV via Zoom.
Yep,
But it's the first time we've
with
met.
Casey.
Yep, first time we've met in person. Tony De La Fuente. Tony is I guess the creator, founder of Prowler.
Yep, exactly. The founder of Prowler Open Source.
Founder's good word.
And I lead the Prowler Pro in Verica. The Prowler.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, we're going to get into that in a second. You already gave out the whole interview, man.
That wasn't a spoiler.
But you know what? For audiences familiar with Aaron, Tony, besides being the founder of Prowler, give people a little bit of background on you.
Well, yeah, I started with Prowler like 6 years ago, but before that I've been around cybersecurity and open source type of projects in the last 15, 20 years. I've done things for networking, Wi-Fi networks, and also now in the last 10 years more focus on the cloud. Mostly in the AWS cloud, but also doing forensics and other stuff for all other clouds.
Well, 6, 7 years ago, it was mostly just AWS cloud, right?
Yeah, mostly on the
You didn't
AWS.
see a lot of Google and Microsoft was just coming through.
Yeah, mostly for AWS, but I prepared a training for cloud forensics a few years ago, and I did GCP and Azure as well.
Excellent. And look, for people in our audience maybe are not familiar with Prowler or not 100%, Prowler is, of course, one of the most popular open source projects on AWS and the cloud for security. Aaron, if you don't mind, before we jump into Verica,
Sure.
I want to go a little deeper on Prowler.
Yeah.
Tony, what does Prowler do for people? Why do people use it?
Yeah, so Prowler is a security scanner that goes through your AWS infrastructure and tells you what you have right or wrong. Basically, so I wanted to do something really easy for anybody to run it and get direct insights. So anybody, even if you are not a cybersecurity expert, you can run it and get red if you have to fix it, or green if you are good to go. That's all. And with that, we added more and more checks covering the most important AWS services and also many different formats, which makes Prowler very easy to integrate with other solutions. And of course, with AWS Security Hub, for example.
Absolutely.
Alan, what I love about Tony's Prowler is Tony's story behind it. Is that when we originally told me about how Prowler came to be, it was partly it's a common problem in all enterprise where there's one security for every 100 devs for 10 ops, right? Like Tony was
Actually,
only.
yeah. When I was in
that story is amazing.
Alfresco back in 2014, I think I took over a position of the cloud security guy. I said, wow, now what?
The guy.
Now what? And by that time, I think it was 2014, the CIS released the AWS benchmark. with a license that we could take it and write whatever we want on top of it. I mean, or taking the benchmark as a baseline for the 50-something number of checks that they published. So I wrote Prowler based on that. So I said, well, at least I have a level 1 and level 2 of security based on the CIS. And now Prowler is way more than the CIS, so we support many other security frameworks, but that was very, very helpful and helped me to say, all the engineers and other people working in AWS say, hey, I don't want to be on top of you. So babysitting, you know what you do in the cloud. So run Prowler by yourself and see what is wrong and fix it. That's all.
That's why people, it's a common problem, common pain people have is like, I got all this cloud, all these teams, all these apps to support in this AWS, and it's a lot of work to do all that. Tony started automating in a way through Prowler. He started automating it through code, and over time, it turns out everyone else had the same problem. That's why Prowler just grew by leaps and bounds.
Yeah,
I think it's a great story.
Yeah, we had like 36 accounts and around 100 engineers. Of course, I didn't want to be on top of them, so they could do that by themselves. And I decided to make it open source. So in terms of weeks or months, it started being more and more popular, and now it's one of the most popular tools for AWS.
I think one of the reasons for that, for success, is something that, even a blind squirrel gets a nut every now and then, right? Yeah. I sit here and I talk to people every day. A common theme that I hear at Kubernetes, with Kubernetes tools, especially security tools, but also configuration, data management, et cetera, is, look, if you're a small team, you got 3 to 5 engineers, probably one of them is the kube expert, whatever, or the cloud expert. He does 90% of it. The other people help out. They do some other stuff. You don't need a Prowler, perhaps, right? You got one thing and you're on it. And even if you do need Prowler, it's an easy thing to do, right?
Yeah, that
because
was
you only got
goal.
the one thing to do. I scan it, I'm done. Now, once I start scaling, like you said, you had, was it 36 engineers or something?
By that time, no, 36 AWS accounts and about 100 engineers. But
now, it's very hard to get your hands around this.
Yeah.
Right? Now you got problems. Now you got scale issues.
Yep.
And it's when that, especially with open source, that is when scale leads to even just a pure open source product isn't enough, because the open source product is good from, let's say, 0 to 100. 100 to 1,000, I need a Prowler Pro or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Hit it on the head,
exactly.
sure.
That was what we thought. So considering the number of users that we have with Prowler, we said, how can we improve the experience other than, of course, improving the open source tool that we are doing every day? Actually, since we are working in Verica, we have released 3 new versions and more than 100 new features.
That's
so
good.
thanks to be full-time, we are now 4 full-time engineers working for that.
So that
helps.
helps. Right, that always helps.
So, and considering that also that Prowler is an important piece, is the core of Prowler Pro. So we are growing Prowler, and now we have a product called Prowler Pro that brings UI and infrastructure with support from our side to the customers, and many other features that we consider are very helpful for companies. In addition,
scale.
I mean, exactly, to scan multiple accounts in parallel. Something that is very important to highlight with Prowler, and you said that more or less before, is about visibility. So the main issue in the cloud, any cloud, is visibility. So, and sometimes we have tools, or we see services that they go, okay, you have to configure it to go and scan whatever you want. The point is, the security is not wherever you want. The security is where it is, or an incident is where it is. So you have to make sure that you are covering the 360 degrees of the whatever you have. So Prowler and Prowler Pro goes through all your regions, all your accounts, no matter what you say. Know what? You don't have to configure anything.
But all the time, though, too, right?
All the time.
Well, it's
And-
continuous because you
Continuous.
have to in today's
Exactly.
world. Things are
Exactly.
changing, not even day by day. They're changing hour by hour, minute by minute.
Exactly. So in the last 10 years, I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of security assessments, and always 100% of the times, I found resources in places that the customers didn't know. So this is something that we want to fix with Prowler, and with Prowler Pro, of course, with continuous monitoring.
Yeah.
So the customer needs to know what they have, where it is. So, okay, suddenly I found an EC2 instance in Singapore. Oh, wow, what a surprise.
Right.
You know,
So
one of the-
we want to fix that.
And one of the really powerful things I love about Prowler Pro is the theme. It also exists in Prowler too. Is the simplicity of it, right? In Prowler Pro, the UI is really red and green, red and green.
Yeah.
It's very
Always.
it's in your face, and but it's constantly changing. It'll tell you what's good, what's bad. Sometimes because there's so much going on, we're at such a scale now, and it's just I need to know what I need to do.
Yeah.
But I need to do it. Does that make sense? I don't want to
Absolutely.
go look through 10 different screens. I don't want to,
I get it. So let's talk. So Prowler Pro was it was announced already, or at the because I remember
It was
talking to you
a
about
month
it.
ago? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Well, a month ago, yeah.
that's when the last time we spoke. What about here at the show? Any new announcements or anything?
Well, we
News-wise.
are talking and showing Prowler Pro.
Okay, so you're here showing
we
it
are
to
showing
people.
Prowler Pro, so
But
it's-
not just here, right? This is going to be
well,
rolled out. You're going to be
we
at
are
some
going
other
to,
events?
We are going to be in many different events, like the week of the Black Hat and DEF CON in Vegas.
in Las
We are
Vegas
going
in
to be
August,
around
Security
it's-
Summer Camp.
Yeah. And also it's besides Las Vegas the same week.
What's the same? That's Security Summer Camp. B-Sides, DEF CON,
And Black Hat.
and Black Hat.
RSA,
RSA.
RSA is
we
in
are-
2
weeks.
We are
Yeah.
going to be there around also if somebody wants to catch up and see the details of Prowler Pro.
We'll be there too.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
oh,
we
yeah,
are
oh,
going
yeah.
to see there.
Reinforce.
The week of the AWS Rainforce, that there is another event called Forward Cloud Sec.
Right.
It's like a community-driven event. The day before the AWS Rainforce in Boston.
Okay.
We're going to be around as well.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
Aaron, I wanted to talk Verica for just a little, whatever time we have left.
Sure.
I mean, Prowler is, look, it's a force, right?
Yeah.
It's something, but there's more going on at Verica as well. Why don't you give us a quick update?
Yeah, so for the folks that aren't familiar with Verica, so we are the creators of Chaos Engineering. It started at our time at Netflix. My co-founder, Casey,
Yep.
was at Netflix, created Chaos Engineering, wrote the O'Reilly book on it. I am known as being sort of the creator of security-based chaos engineering. But with Verica, what we wanted to do was, so chaos engineering is a part of what we do, but we've evolved the craft to be just something we call continuous verification. It's the idea of constantly, proactively verifying that the system can do what it's supposed to do. And that may sound like a very simple concept, but like with the scale, speed, and complexity of modern computing, what's happening is we're building and delivering so fast, but we don't know whether we're on solid ground or on the edge of a cliff, right? What Verica is designed to do, so we use things like chaos engineering, we use things like continuous audit and assessment for security, we have some kind of observability kind of capabilities in the product, but we're trying to proactively ensure, can you meet your SLOs? Does your security posture actually, is it what you think it is? Give you that confidence, that proactively, that instead of trying to figure out the problem after the fact. That's really what Verica's doing.
Absolutely.
And Prowler's part of our story, moving into the AWS space, and Prowler's just a great story by itself. Tony's
You know what we didn't mention though? For people who want to get information on Prowler and Prowler Pro, do they go to the Verica site? Is there a Prowler site?
They can go to prowler.pro.
.pro.
That is the easier way, probably. Or at my Twitter handle, Tony BLYX. Or, I think.
Prowler.pro. You don't want
works.
people bothering you on Twitter.
It's fine.
And for Verica, it's verica.com. VERICA.
Verica.io.
I'm sorry, Verica.io. Hey guys, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for
Tony, it's
having
a
us.
pleasure to meet you in person, man.
Good to meet you too.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So good to see you, Alan.
Good to see you. I'll see you in RSA in a
Yes,
couple
you
weeks.
will.
Yep.
You can be
I'll
there.
be there.
We will see you there. We'll be on Broadcast Alley all week,
Yep.
man.
Perfect.
All right. Be well. We're out.
Thank you.
I think we're gonna take a lunch break. Or maybe we have one more coming up. Stay tuned, give us a minute. You know this guy? Hey, we're back live in Valencia, Cloud Native Con, KubeCon. It is, well, it's probably a little bit after lunch. I see a lot of people eating, so it is
lunch is right now.
Lunch is right now. If you don't know this guy, you probably are not in DevOps. But it's good to see him in person. It's been too long in person, my friend.
It's been too long.
It's Baruch Zagorski. Baruch is with, of course, JFrog. I don't even, you have like a fancy title now, right?
Yeah, no, I'm like the same chief sticker officer I always
was.
Been,
I
right?
know, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I thought they gave you a fancier title though. Tell the
Chief sticker
truth.
officer is good enough.
All right, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that.
Best job ever, best job ever.
Absolutely, but the hat, the whole get-up, you look great, man.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
It's great to see you. It's great to be back in person. And yeah, it's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. Yeah.
So well, what have you been up to?
Right, so I mean, same old, doing great stuff in JFrog, and the world is changing, right, in terms of what's going on with DevOps.
Yeah.
And this is really fascinating. So, Alan, what do you think are kind of the trends and what's going on in DevOps?
So here's what I see. The world keeps spinning. COVID, no COVID, wars, the world keeps spinning. And DevOps is evolving.
Yes.
Like the DevOps that when I started DevOps.com 8 years ago, 8 years, maybe 9 years, it was very different, right? We spoke about things like Chef and Puppet, Ansible, and you see they've all been acquired for probably less money than we would all
Absolutely.
think. Because because they don't, to a large extent, what we see around us here at Kubernetes made them obsolete.
Of course,
right?
Of course.
But we also saw, and I've seen this in my life, and we're living it right now, these cycles. IPO, raise money, lose money, go out of business, right? And so what happens, Baruch, is everybody wants to be with a winner. Everybody wants to make money. DevOps had that gold around it, and everyone was rushing to it. And it's, it's the natural way of things.
Look, everybody wants to be here.
Everybody wants to be in Kubernetes. There are going to be winners, there'll be losers. I actually had this conversation with Shlomi a couple months ago, where just because you're able to raise money and say you're a DevOps company or a cloud native company doesn't necessarily mean that you're a fundamentally sound company.
Of course.
And I think what we're seeing now, the biggest thing I think we're going to see in DevOps is a shakeout of who is making products that people really need.
Those
not
who
nice
get
to
it
have,
and those who make noise.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of noise. There's always a lot of noise. But if you make something that people must have, you'll be great.
You're right.
You accelerate through downturns in a market. If you just make noise, or you have something that's nice but not necessary, you're a loser in this market.
A great friend of mine, Leonid Igolnik, he is like a seasoned engineering executive in DevOps, and he has a very nice metaphor for it. Vitamins versus aspirin.
Yeah, that is a good metaphor for it.
Right, so you have to be an aspirin for people to buy, even when they don't have money for vitamins.
Because when they have pain, they buy.
They buy.
You're right.
And in hard times, they will stick
do
with
without the
aspirin.
vitamins.
They will do without the vitamins.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yes.
So let's bring this home to JFrog a little bit.
Well, we love to think about ourselves as aspirin, obviously, and I think the adoption JFrog Artifactory is everywhere, right?
It's everywhere.
I mean,
that's very ubiquitous.
We used to ask, what do you use for like artifact management and project management and stuff? We stopped asking that at the booth. It does. I mean, we got to.
If you're doing artifact management, you're using Artifactory.
Right. So that's kind of that's obvious. But That's only one part of the solution. And the interesting thing about DevOps and its evolution is how we nailed some things and then we move on to other things, right? So the basics of DevOps, things that we speak for 11 years now. Stuff like SRE,
Yeah.
site reliability
Well, we
engineering.
weren't calling it SRE 11 years
Right,
ago.
right. But then Google came in and said,
Right.
hey, we have some
They wrote the
tooling.
book.
We have the tooling and the technology that implements DevOps. It's called SRE. What is SRE? Is when we take software approach to system administration.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has happened. It happened. We're at KubeCon because this is
No
that's
doubt.
what happened.
That,
right?
That's a big, huge trend.
And now we are looking at, so this is done, period. And Artifactory is a part of that. Obviously, you have to use Artifactory because you have to take this software approach to system administration, automate everything with the tools that you have done. Now we see that people ask what's next, or the market kind of suggests them what's next. And stuff like bringing the developers now into the picture. We always spoke about how developers should be the part together with ops. This is what DevOps is about. But what we really did, except of speaking, is the SRE part, nailing
Right.
down the SRE part.
Yep.
And this was bringing the system administrators to be developers, but not exactly bringing the developers
to system.
to systems. And now the market kind of knocks on our door and say, hey folks, how about that? So you educated your developers to participate in the DevOps culture, and they want it. They want to be on call. They want to be there where their code is deployed to production. They want to help customers with their code. Can they do it technically? You have a developer now on call.
Yeah.
They sit in their IDE, they look at their code. What do they know about it?
So what you're describing is what I call pride. You know, there used to be like, we had guilds of workmen. If you were a barrel maker or whatever you are, a metal worker.
Craftsmanship.
A craftsmanship, right? When I was young, a long time ago.
Like last year.
Yeah. Software developers, it was a craft. There was a
Exactly.
craftsmanship
Yes.
to it.
Yes.
There was a tremendous amount of pride. What you were creating was bespoke.
And it's still there. It's still there.
Yeah.
The only question is, how do we define done? What we did, we like it, and
Yeah.
we are done. If now something goes boom, it's not our problem anymore.
Yep.
This is what you described. This is how it used to be.
Yep.
Now, 11 years into DevOps,
Scale and everything.
of course, we managed to get this message. Hey, you cannot stop in committing to GitHub. This is only the beginning of journey of your software
Agreed.
to your customers and or users. And if you take pride of that, you need to be there when the users meet your software, which means in production. Fine, the message went across. Now we have the developers taking this pride and saying, yes, we want to be there.
Yep.
We want to participate. But what can we do? Our tools are GitHub,
Developer
IDE, developer tools. Your tools are completely different. Kubernetes, monitoring, chaos engineering, all this stuff. Those are different tools. How do we make them work together? This is the next frontier. This is where we are now.
Yep.
Right, so there is this big
One thing you've left out though, security.
Here we go.
Security.
Exactly the same thing.
Okay.
And we can look at it from two perspectives. We can say, okay, security is another silo. There are all those chief security officers that come from compliance. All they want to do is shut everything down, so nothing can go wrong. And that's obviously the opposite incentive from everybody else now, because we want to move forward. And this has also been the view of DevOps on security. The whole idea of, hey, let's do DevSecOps was about, let's change that. Let's, instead of doing silos, let's work together. We managed to get the message across. Again, 11 years we've been talking about it, boom. Now everybody wants to be security the part of the job, the question is again, okay, how do we do it? We have security tools like the old school. How do we plug them in
To the new.
ones?
Yeah.
And how do we make sure that when we use 80% of open source packages in our code, we can actually do it securely, but also not intrusive, because
Right.
it's either or. You either use whatever you like, or you nail everything down and then you
But
cannot
then,
go
but then the
forward.
developers feel nailed down.
Exactly.
Right, so it's because, so here's the thing. These craftsman developers, they like, this has been borne out, we've seen it in DevOps. They like to use the tools that they like to use.
Of course.
They don't like to be told. I think one of the big thing when we look at, like, let's say an X-ray, and not just X-ray, there's other DevSecOps tools out here
Not as good, obviously.
that are not as good, maybe, but but making security tools that the developer is comfortable
Exactly.
using. That's the key. That's the unlocking the lock.
And you know how you do it? Instead of trying to pull the developers into the tools, you bring the tools to
the
developers.
developer. I agree.
Right,
I agree
and this is how-
100%.
And this is how you have the IDE plugin, right, or X-Ray as well. The right code, boom, the information is right there. And then
Agreed.
there is the Docker desktop extensions, and that's what was announced in DockerCon last
Yes.
week.
Yeah, I
right?
saw that.
That you can plug those tools into the Docker desktop that developers use on their machine, and then again you will have it sooner. This is all shift left, right? It's a nasty term. It's abuse to the death.
Another abuse term. But so's DevOps.
Right,
I
but
mean,
in the end of the day, it actually makes sense, right? We do shift the tools to the developers, not because some grand idea behind it, just because people love their tools that they love. And if you want to be there, you have to take your shit and get
Move
there,
over there.
and not the other
Because
way
they're not
around.
going to come. They're
Exactly.
not going to come to
Exactly.
you. You got to bring it
Exactly.
down. So to me, that, and I'll tell you something else. So I'm sitting here, right? There's 2 days now I'm sitting here. We've had 50, we've had almost 25, 30 interviews in 2 days.
Right.
Baruch, at least half, if not 3/4, are about securing from a developer point of view and securing like from the SRE point of view.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
And again, the question is, the problem is exactly there, right? You said we have 2 different topics. They shouldn't be 2 different topics.
No, there should be security.
They should be the same topic. And that's exactly where I see the next big challenge, right? How do we bring now, we nail down the SRE part and it's great. How do we take the developers and again, start doing DevOps, start breaking silos.
So bringing them
same
working
shit that
together.
we
I
spoke
agree
about
with
in
you.
years
Same
ago.
tools, different things.
Exactly.
Excellent.
Exactly. Another very interesting trend. I know you're not in a hurry. You don't have a line of people waiting to get interviewed. We're all good. We're not
We're all
limited in
good.
time. So another interesting trend, and I think it's fascinating, is artificial intelligence and big data in.
And how this is going to play
In
out
DevOps.
in DevOps.
There are 2 different questions. There is the question, hey, we have a market of AI and big data. How we can implement DevOps there?
Okay.
That's
yes.
an interesting topic.
That's one topic.
And there is another interesting
Of
topic.
how do we use that?
How we can use
DevOps.
those in DevOps for them and for everybody else.
And that, so I'd be honest, that to me is the much more interesting topic.
For me too.
Right, because I think that's a game changer.
Of course. And we can see companies, the most interesting ones, start doing that. We can see all the...
But it's baby steps.
It's baby steps because it's hard. So I'll give you an example. For example, we want to plug the developers back to DevOps, right? This is what we spoke about. And we want to make observability not only on systems, but also on code. But making observability on code is very hard because code goes a long way between when it was written to when we observe it in production and when it actually matters.
Understood.
Right? How do we make this tracking, how do we provide context which speaks to developers in production? This is a question for a lot of machine learning, artificial intelligence, big data, because this is how we know, this is where we learn how code behaves, right? That's one example. Another might be systems are complicated. How developers can understand a context of a special piece of this huge puzzle every time, especially in stressing scenarios. On call, boom, something went boom at night 3 a.m. Everybody are running with their hair on fire. The problem is somewhere in code. This developer, how do they know anything about it, right? And this is, I think, where the technology can enable us to bridge this gap that they were talking about all day.
When do you think we'll see this?
We see seeds of it now. My biggest concern is, okay, the ideas are there. We understand how they can help. Is the technology already there? When I see a website that promised me that, I say, okay, I understand why. I understand how, in principle, it is done. Will your tool, when it will be available, actually work?
And that's the big question.
That's the big question, and it's a new question. Before, the question was how it is even related. And then the question is, do we really need it? Or it's just adding AI to everything and that's make everything sexy. Those two, we already got it. We understand why they need them, we understand how they can help. The question now, will they actually help? And when?
Yeah.
And that's the interesting question. And I think this is a fascinating area to look at and to be watching in the next year.
I think we will. We'll talk more about it.
We will.
I got to go though. We got people waiting. I think we lost our next one.
You
Such
snooze,
is
you
life.
lose.
That's all.
What I say.
All right. Hey, we're live in Valencia with my friend Baruch from JFrog. Check it out.
Awesome.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back here in a moment.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.